Okay, Ben here, back with another video for you. Today, I decided I'm going to do something a little bit different. You know, I was going to do a live stream earlier, and then a few of the channels that I've watched, and that I usually watch, I should say, I've been doing live streams tonight, so I got kind of caught up watching a couple of them, and wasn't sure if I was going to do one of these tonight or not, but now here I am. I had some time, so I figured I might as well do it. Couple of things. First things first, how do you like my hat? Right off the bat, Dylan says he wants one, huh? I like that. That's pretty nice, huh? I'm more of a beanie kind of guy than I am a baseball cap kind of guy. You know, they sent out a baseball hat when I first bought my Sawmill, and then I got lucky that they sent me one of these too. Hey, look at that. Good to see you guys. You know, I'm glad you guys stuck in there with me. I know I haven't been posting as often as I want to, but you know, it's one of those things, you get busy with work, and you know, you do what you can. No sawdust flying around. No, not today. You know, it's been a little while since I've been out at the sawmill. I just sat down and got that video posted last week of me cleaning some of the slabs up out there, but you know, I think it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be a little slim out there for a while. Work's picking up, it's kind of busy. I think probably for at least the next month or two it's going to be one of those things where I'll be lucky to get out to the sawmill and maybe get some wood cut maybe once a week or something. So couple different things I figured I'd talk about. I went out and ordered myself a few things. I figured since I got them, I might as well go over them here with you guys. First one I think you guys might be interested in. I went and bought myself another moisture meter. The first moisture meter I bought from it was actually a Still, and I thought it would be good. I guess, you know, name brand got me on that one. I went and used it a few times out in the lumber pile, and just from sitting for a couple of months the batteries ended up dying on it. So it's one of those things where I went and tried to replace the battery on it. Of course, it's one of those oddball watch batteries that you have a hard time finding, can't really get. So I went and ordered another one of these moisture meters, and this one here has a couple AAA batteries in it, so hopefully that'll be easier for me to get and replace and use that. Now, I opened this up today for the first time. I just got it in the mail, and I'm already not liking it. You open this thing up and it's got the probes in the top. I want to get one of the contact ones that are you know, the probe free ones, but this was cheap and easy, so I figured that I'd try this out and see what it's like. Hey, Mike McCoy made it. You know, I'm glad you guys are still watching and still sticking in there. Like I said, I apologize I haven't posted as much as I really would like to. But, you know, it's one of those things, you get busy and just don't have the time. Anyway, back to this moisture meter. This moisture meter has a couple different settings on it. I opened it up about 20 minutes ago. I started going over and looking at it a little bit. Now, if you look at it, it says 0.0 right there right now. And if I put my finger across it, it'll actually read the moisture content on my skin. It's, you know, it gives a reading anyway. Now, I put this on a dry cutting board that I had in the house that I'm actually working on right now, that I haven't put any finish on yet or done anything with it. I just put it through the planer, sanded it down a little bit. I put it in the house, and it's sitting pretty dry for a couple of weeks now, so I wanted to see what the moisture content was on it. I don't want to, you know, go through all the trouble of sanding it and planing it and having it all finished up, and then when it dries, it kind of, the different kinds of woods in the cutting board set back a little bit different, so I want to make sure it's good and dry before I finish it. So I went and put this moisture meter on in the house to test it out, and it doesn't give me any reading whatsoever, which is kind of weird. I don't know why it is that's doing that, but for some reason it's not giving me a reading on that. So I came out here in the garage. I've got a couple different pieces of wood out here. This piece of maple I've had in here, I think I milled this probably about a year ago roughly. So it's been sitting in my garage for some time now. And if I put the moisture meter on that, I'm getting a reading of about 8% moisture on that. And that's probably about, I'm thinking it's a little low actually, because this isn't kiln dried stuff. This is stuff that I just milled off the lumber or off the logs and then set out in the yard, let it dry for about a year. I brought it in the garage. I made a couple projects with it, and it's been sitting in the garage for a couple of months now. And to me, I'm thinking right off the sawmill, right off the lumber stack, without going through a kiln, being kiln dried, I should be getting a reading roughly 12%, I'm thinking 12-13%. I don't think I'm getting a real accurate reading here at 7-8% on this piece of wood. There's a couple other pieces of wood I have here. Piece of pine. Tried it on a piece of pine, I'm getting about 6%. Now that kind of makes sense that everything in the garage here would be right around the same amount of moisture content in it. Here's a piece of oak. I took a piece of oak, put it in the lathe, and made the handle for that toolbox I made in one of those videos a while back. And I'm getting about 7% on that too. 6.5, 7%, something like that, depending on where the probes are on it. So it makes sense that everything out here in the garage is reading the same moisture content, but it doesn't make sense to me that it's reading 7%. I would think that it should be more around 12%. I don't know. So I kind of have my doubts about how accurate this moisture meter is going to be. I'm going to take it out and I'll test it out on the lumber that I cut fresh off the sawmill and see what kind of a moisture content I get on a fresh wet log. And then we'll go from there. I'll give you a better idea on whether or not this thing's worth its money or not. Yeah, I'd be suspect of that too. I just, you know, it's one of those things, I don't want to go and spend a ton of money on a moisture meter, but I would like to be able to tell roughly where it's at before I go and make a project with it. And if I'm going to build a kiln this spring, I want something to be able to check it out with. And unfortunately, if you guys have any suggestions, do me a favor and leave them in a comment on one of my videos so that I can get a chance. It'll be written down for me and I can look it up and check it out. These cheap stick-on moisture meters I don't think are very good. Like I said, I'm getting about 7% here in the garage of stuff that isn't kiln dried. I think that is probably about half of what it is. It should be about 12-15%, I would think. So I'm kind of suspect on this, but like I said, I'm going to check it out when I do some fresh cuts on some fresh logs. Let's see here. I haven't been looking at the comments much here. If you get a humidity gauge in your solar kiln, you'll be able to tell by looking at the humidity in your kiln when the wood's dry. Yeah, you know, there's probably a couple different things, a couple different gauges I'm probably going to have to get and check that out and see. Yeah, unless I'm making furniture, ballpark should be good. I actually had all this lumber that I've done, that I've cut so far, and that I've taken out and I've dried, just air drying it. I air dry, I put it out in the yard, I stack it, sticker it and stack it. I put it under some pieces of tin out in the yard and I leave it dry for about a year. Take it in the garage, I plane it down. I usually let it sit in the garage for a little bit of time before I use it. And it kind of settles out in the garage. And I found that the other meter that I had is a little more accurate, but like I said, it's got a watch battery in it. It's hard for me to find, so it's hard for me to replace the batteries on it. And that's why I got these ones with the AAA batteries. I thought it would be a little bit quicker and easier to change the batteries out. Unfortunately, I don't think this one's near as accurate as the other one was. With that one, I was getting about 12-14%, and the things I made out of the wood when it was sitting at 12-14% held up pretty good. You know, I was a little suspect on some of the things that I made. The first thing I made that I actually put in the house, piece of furniture wise, was a dresser I made for my wife, and I put it in the house. And I was a little suspect on it because I knew it was a little wetter than it should be. And I know my house gets extremely dry. In the wintertime I have gas hot air for heat, and I know that the air gets real dry in the house. I knew it was going to suck the moisture out of that wood, and I was a little worried it would split or crack, and it didn't. You know, and I think there's a couple of probably things that were working in my favor for that. I made that out of pine, and I know that pine is one of those woods that it dries really well. It doesn't usually split or crack. I know the hardwoods are a little bit tougher on that kind of stuff, and I just kind of got lucky with that, I think, a little bit. The new sign behind me, that was my first test mock-up sign. That was a freehand. I just kind of slapped that together. You see the spot there where I buzzed it with the router there. I got some signs coming. You know, Roy there from Clavota Milling and Signs, he's got some, he made me a couple of signs, and when they come, I'll be showing them off a little bit. But yeah, I just figured I'd throw that up there, something for you guys to look at. You know, I sat here looking at it, sitting in the corner. That was just something that I had that I tried out. But, you know, I think I'm gonna have to look into a better moisture meter. There's ones that you lay on the wood that give a better reading on it, and I think that they're a little more expensive, but I think long run, I think I'm gonna have to spend a little bit more money and get a better meter because these cheap ones just aren't working out. Anyway, back to what I was saying about drying the lumber out. You know, all the projects that I've made so far, I've done really well on. I've let them dry in the garage, come down to about 12% or so, and then I've used them, and I haven't had an issue. Now, my brother, on the other hand, went and I planed up a bunch of pine, and it only sat in the yard for probably, I don't know, 3-4 months. And the thing of it is I actually milled them up for a guy that was planning on making some tree stands with them, I believe. So he took the lumber and he laid it out in, I think, a wet area, and he didn't have any cover on it, I don't believe. And they decided that they were going to take a couple of those boards and make a closet door out of them. So they took and they planed them down, nailed them all together, made them all up, put them all in the house. And as soon as it got in the house and it got dry, the bottom of the door warped right out on the door. So that's one of those learning experiences that you got to understand. If you're going to be cutting your own lumber, you got to make sure the wood's at least semi-dry before you go and use it and put it in the house. You know, it's one of those things. If you don't dry it right, it will twist, it will warp, it will crack, it will do all kinds of crazy things. So I apologize if I missed your guys' comment. There's something important you guys want to talk about. Just kind of, you know, post it a couple times so I can see it. You know, because I'm rambling on here. I'm not really reading every comment, to be honest with you. You know, it's a shame that the internet is a great thing, and at the same time, it's kind of tough that, you know, you get to meet such great people, but you live so far away from each other. You know, it'd be nice, like, you know, Roy Clavota Milling and Signs has these signs that he's making. You guys, if you haven't checked his channel out, go over there and check his channel out. But, you know, he makes some really nice signs, and I've got a lot of wood that I would like to make signs out of, but I don't have the CNC machine to make them. And to be honest with you, trying to mill them with a router is kind of tough. You know, you can print out some stuff off the internet and lay them down and lay a template down and freehand it, and it looks pretty decent, like the one I did for my sawmill. But you know, that it's one of those things where it's kind of rough to do. Kirk says, so I have fresh mulberry cut sitting in the house to dry. If you don't have a kiln, is that too fast in the house to dry? I would say no. I would say it's a perfect way to do it. Put it in the house and let it dry. The only problem with that is it takes a pretty good period of time for it to dry out in the house. You know, you put a fan on it, it'll help dry it out a little bit quicker. But I think that's a good way of doing it. Wood naturally, as far as my understanding of everything, is it'll naturally take on the moisture content of the area around it. So if you take your wood in the house and you set it in, say you have, my brother just took a load of a wood that he had, he laid it in the house all winter long next to his coal stove, not next to it, but in the same room or so of the coal stove, and it sat in that room all winter long, and I am sure that that wood is dry down to probably about 5-6% just from sitting in the dry house. The coal stove really dries the area out, and it dries it out so well that I know it's at 5-6%. And now he's remodeling the basement, so he took all that wood out and put it back in the garage. And I told him, I said, once you take that wood out of the basement of the house at 5% and you lay it out in the garage, the garage is probably around 12% moisture, and that moisture will creep back into the wood over a period of time, and you know, a few weeks or so it'll be right back up to 11-12% again. So it's one of those things. He wants to make a kitchen table out of it, and I told him it'd be better to have it dried out than it would to have it wet. But I think that's one of those things that we'll play with it as we go, you know. You got to be careful drying the wood too fast because you can case harden it, but I think that's one of those things. Most kilns get up to about 130 degrees or so to dry out the wood. So it's something I don't have all figured out, but it's something that I plan on working on as I go along. You know, I don't know about putting them in over the register at the house. The register probably sitting right on it, directly on it, blowing warm air on it might dry it out in spots more than others. It would probably be better to have it setting out across a little bit of an open area, and maybe put like a box fan on low and just have it blow across it would probably be ideal. But it's still going to take a period of time for it to dry the wood out. Alright, what else did I get? Well, I got my hat. You know, Woodland Mills was nice enough to send me a hat. I think they see me wearing my beanies I wear all the time, and they thought it would be a good idea to send me a beanie, and you know, I'm really appreciative of them if they see this. You know, thank you for the hat. It's a pretty nice hat. Something else I've been getting, I went and got This is kind of off the Sawmill path, but I went and got a flashlight. Now these flashlights, I'm not sure how well it's going to come up there, but they're Streamlight. They're two AAA batteries. These lights I got into working maintenance, and I'll tell you, working electrical maintenance and stuff, you have a lot of areas where it's dark or you're working on lighting and stuff and you need a light to be able to see what you're doing. Yeah, no M&Ms, yeah. You know, these flashlights, I got a couple of them. I went and I buy these like 4 at a time. They're about 20 bucks on Amazon. I don't have any affiliated links or anything, and I'm not trying to tell you to go buy these things, but these lights are nice little lights. They have, they're really bright, and they're nice and compact. I like to have these lights because they're easy for me to put in my pocket. You know, I can put them in my pocket right alongside a marker or a pen and carry them around with me, and anytime I need them, they're right there handy. And I use these things like you wouldn't believe. They're very compact and bright little light, Streamlight. I got them off Amazon. You know, I use these things for everything, even welding. Last one I had, I melted the lens on. I was welding, and I get into some tight spots where I can't really see real well, so I put my light on, and I was holding it with one hand and welding with the other, and I got my light a little too close to the weld so I could see what I was doing, and melted the lens on it while I was welding. But you know, it's one of those things about every other year or so, I end up rubbing them so wrong the paint comes off them and they wear out, and I end up getting more. But I thought I'd share that with you. That was something else I bought that was in the package here. I thought I'd go over with you guys. See what comments I'm missing here, see if there's anything. When you buy your woodland mill saw, all you got was a bunch of sawdust. I think the hat was something that they started doing. They wanted to do a thing where if you shared some pictures or something, they would send you a hat. So if you went and you milled up some lumber, when I bought my sawmill, I think that the deal was if you sent them some pictures of some of the work, some of the things you were doing, they would send you a baseball cap, and you had your choice of I forget what the color was. I think it was a green one, but it was just a plain colored hat or a camouflage hat. And I went with the camouflage hat, but I'm not really one for baseball caps too much, so I don't really get a whole lot of use out of it. And then my brother was in a couple of my videos with me, you know, talking about doing some of the woodworking in the garage, and they sent me a second hat. They asked if I would want one to give to my brother, and he wears it all the time. And then this hat here I got just from, you know, they were talking to me, seeing that I was wearing beanies, and you know, it's one of those things that it was nice of them to send me a beanie. You know, it's one of those things out here in the winter time. I'm always wearing a winter hat, and hey, I'm thankful. I'm appreciative. You know, so that's something they didn't have to do, and they sent me a hat, so I'm thankful for that. You know, these live streams are something on YouTube. They go by so fast. I've been here, it seems like just like 2 minutes talking to you guys, and it's actually been almost 20 already. Chris, you sent them pics and you didn't get your hat. If I was you, I'd email them. Send them an email and tell them about it. They'll send you one. You know, sometimes it gets lost in the mail or it gets confused or something happens, you know. I've never had any issue with it. If they tell you they're going to send you something, they usually send it. So if you have an issue where you didn't get it, I would send them an email and ask them about it. Especially, you know, you bought a saw off them, they should definitely, I would assume they would definitely send you a hat. Yeah, imagine a kid stealing your... You know these flashlights? I buy these flashlights by like I said, I buy them 4 at a time. And it seems like every time I have them, everybody needs one or wants one. You know, I gave my wife one, I gave my brother. Well, I didn't yet, but I'm gonna give my brother one. And the guys at work, you know, when we first started getting them, it was one of those things where everybody's like, wow, that's nice and handy. And, you know, it was one of those things where, hey, you need a flashlight, here's a flashlight. And I go through them. You received your hats plus a clutch. Yeah, I would think you need a clutch for your sawmill work, right, huh? Make some videos working on the Jeep. You know, that's one thing that we're not really I don't know how to say it. We're not really automotively inclined. There's the word for it. How's that? You know, it's one of those things. We do a lot of electrical work, a lot of carpentry work, a lot of woodworking, but the automotive stuff. You know, I think that that Jeep was one of those things that you see the Jeep in the videos there in the driveway. It was something that he bought as something to play with, and then it turned into a project. He ended up swapping the motor out on it, and he never followed through and finished a wiring harness on it. So that's one of those things that needs to be done, and just kind of fell on the back burner, you know. And when work gets busy and things get busy, it just gets kind of pushed off, and it's been sitting there for a little while now. So maybe someday I will do a video or two on that. You know, we'll see how that goes. You never know. If I get to that project, and maybe we'll do some videos on that. Did I start with, or have I ever used an Alaskan mill setup? No, I originally, that was my first thought. I wanted to buy an Alaskan mill and use a chainsaw to mill some lumber. And I started looking at prices on things, and it got to the point where you'd spend close to $1,000 or so on just the Alaskan mill, and especially if you're going to buy a chainsaw, a big enough chainsaw to be able to handle the capacity of cutting lumber. It's one of those things that you could probably use a cheaper chainsaw, but if you're going to buy a heavier chainsaw and buy the Alaskan mill, you start talking $1,000, $2,000. And it just got to one of those things where Woodland Mills for, you know, the HM122 was roughly that same price. So it was one of those things where I decided the bandsaw would be quicker and more efficient, and for the price, I just started right out with the bandsaw mill. You know, I always started out with buying rough cut lumber, and we just planed our own rough cut lumber to make our own wood projects. So it's something that instead of buying rough cut lumber, I usually can find logs one way or the other. People have down trees with storms, or you know, there's people who want to get rid of trees that are on their property, and then I can turn those logs into lumber. And I have the space and the time to cut it, let it dry out in the yard, and then use it for projects. So I went straight from, you know, basically working with rough cut lumber right into just buying a bandsaw mill and going from there. And that's how I got started with it. I'm glad you guys all managed to come in and stop and catch the live stream here. You know, I wasn't sure. I know usually Mondays seem to be a good day to do them. I'm not sure why. I guess the first day of the week everybody's out of work, and it's just a good time to sit down and catch up on some video. How do you say that, Mike? Is it lignomat? Lignomat makes a good moisture meter. I'll have to look into that. I really want to get a good one. I mean, not like top of the line one, but something that is cost effective, but yet is a good meter that I get a good accurate reading on. Oh, I'm glad the notifications are working. Your phone dinged and said I was on. Well, that's great. I'm glad the notifications are working. There's a lot of people that got here quick. You know, there's 22 watching right now, and most of you got here right off the bat. I'm kind of surprised. You know, it's one of those things where a lot of faithful subscribers that stop by and watch. And I really appreciate everybody coming by. Real McCoy says, yep, I had one that did good. It burned up in our kiln. I saw the video you did on that fire that you had in your kiln. That's something. You know, I can't even imagine going through all that. You know, that was something. Mike says, when will you start working with the lumber you've been milling? It's kind of an ever-evolving thing. You know, I try to mill at least a log or two every month, so that way I constantly have a fresh stream of already dried lumber coming in so that I can work on some projects. So it's one of those things where it's always an ever evolving thing. So I mill a log this month, and a year from now I'll use that lumber. And you know, I milled a log, you know, every month, so every month I have fresh lumber basically out there ready to come in, more or less. You know, and it's one of those things where sometimes I'll get a pile of lumber cut, and then other months are kind of dry, but right now I've got a pretty good stack of lumber out in the yard, and it's one of those things where I don't do a whole lot of woodworking, and it all depends on my work schedule and what's going on too, but usually I have at least some lumber out there ready to go. My brother's a big woodworking nut, and he likes to do a lot of that for a hobby, so it's something where he uses a lot of the lumber too, so we're always constantly going through and planing and readjusting the stacks and redoing all that and getting more wood out. I think my kids are burning the house, but whatever. Here, since you brought it up, there's a comment here that says TV is garbage. At least here you might learn something. You know, we sat down watching TV, my wife and I, just a little bit ago, and some of the commercials that are on there are so vulgar, it's unbelievable. It's like you sit there watching this stuff, and it's like they're talking about stuff that's, you know, just so... Kids are watching TV, and these commercials come on, and I sit there and I shake my head. I think, you know, some of the stuff that some people have done on YouTube that they've complained about and taken down, and went through the whole rigmarole of getting banned or having their channels taken down, or even being flagged or whatever, you know, having strikes against their channel. I'm thinking most of the stuff that people have been taken off of YouTube for don't even compare to half of the commercials that are on national television here in the United States. I mean, some of the stuff is just ridiculous, you know. Hey, Jack the Ripped, you know, it's just something that I can't quite wrap my head around how they can be so controlling over what you say and do on YouTube, but then when you turn TV on, you're watching CSI or you know, one of these criminal shows or something, and they're talking about rape and sex and all this other stuff, and it's very, you know, vulgar, especially for younger kids watching TV. Then the commercials come on, and it's all about, you know, doctors' offices and different things, and you know, it's just all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't want your kids listening to, but yet there it is on national television, and you really can't control it. It's on all the time. And I think it's one of the downfalls of TV. I think TV's on its way out. You know, it's one of those things that internet and being able to live stream all the stuff, Netflix and YouTube and all these kind of things are taking over now. There's something about building with your own lumber. It's a freaking joy. Yeah, I agree with you there. You know, it's something that you get a sense of satisfaction when you're building something with your own lumber. It's just, you know, it's just a real sense of satisfaction. You take something from a log into lumber, and I don't know what it is. I guess it's just the wood cutting junkies. You know, we just like that smell of sawdust and looking at the grain of the wood and everything coming to life. And it's something when you build a project with your own two hands, and you be able to stand back and look at it and say, hey, you know, I did that. I built that from nothing. You know, and that's something. Mike says, I started putting up videos of my sawmill build because of everyone's comments last month. So thanks for all the inspiration. I'll have to check that out. I'll stop by and see what you got going on there. There's a lot of people that have built their own sawmills. I've been checking their channels out, and that's kind of one of those things where that was part of what I started here. I got into was looking at everybody with their sawmills and what they had on YouTube. And turn off the TV and buy a mill. Amen to that. No TV since I got internet. Good old 54K modem. I'll tell you what, I watch very little TV anymore. It's one of those things where at one point I watched quite a bit of TV, and I think the older I get, the less of it I watch. It's gotten to the point now where I could probably get by without it entirely. Start from the top of the tree and work your way down. Summer's around the corner, no need for TV. I tell you, I'm ready for spring. This snow stuff, I live in Pennsylvania, and for anybody that's not familiar with our kind of weather, we've had days here already where it was 70 degrees or so, and then all of a sudden it's like snowing and 6 inches of snow the next day. It's just crazy. Time change is coming. I'll tell you, that's the other thing too. Right now, hey, Ben is a good inspiration for all the Sawmill owners. Hey, thanks, I appreciate that. You know, right now I get out of work. I'm working kind of oddball stuff right now, but it's kind of one of those things where I've been working a little bit of day shift lately, and I get out of work sometimes 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And you saw that video where I did some of the cleanup there with the buck saw. Once I started cutting there, I only have really 5, 6, maybe 7, so maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 at the most before the sunlight goes out on me. And you saw how quick it went from me just cutting those pieces of slab wood up, and the next thing you know, it's so dark that the camera doesn't even pick up out there. I showed that. I could see it with my naked eye. It's one of those things where it's really not that dark. It's just like dusk out there. But I showed you in that video, I turned the camera over to look at the stack of wood that I had cut there, and you couldn't even see it. It was so pitch black. What kind of work do I do for a real job? I'm a maintenance electrician, so electrical work more or less. You know, it's one of those things where I work industrial electrical work, so it's one of those things where I do a little bit of everything. Hydraulics, pneumatics, welding, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, gearboxes, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, NASA, I wish, you know, if they would pay me half as good, you know, I'd be alright. It's just one of those things where electrical work is kind of in my blood, you know. I was born and raised with it. My whole family's done it, and, you know, I've done it my whole life, so more or less just electrical work is my niche. This woodworking stuff, you know, I don't know how much to believe or not believe, but supposedly the history of my relatives in the past have had sawmills, and I've done logging and I've done woodworking, and maybe I got a little bit of that in my blood, I guess, because something about working with some woodworking, working with cutting logs and stuff, it's just one of those things that I enjoy. It's something that every time you cut a log on the sawmill, you open it up and you look at that lumber and stuff, it's just the smell of the sawdust and the look of the grain and stuff. It's just something that it's just enjoyable to me. Do you do much with induction motors? I discharged a capacitor on myself yesterday. Yeah, I don't do a whole lot of work with them, but I know what you're talking about. Dylan says, wish I could quit my job. Gets pretty boring. You and me both. I'll tell you what, I wish YouTube would be one of those things that would take off and make tons of money, and the next thing you know, it would be, oh, I deleted a message. I didn't mean to do that. I must have bumped it there. I'm sorry about that. Whatever you said there, Pratt's Greenhouse, you know, send it again. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to delete it. I'm trying to scroll through the comments while I'm talking here, and I got fat fingers, you know, so I apologize for that. Just send me that message again. Stick to your day job. It pays better. That's the problem, Mike McCoy. That's exactly it. You know, you got to stick with a day job because that pays the bills. And that's where I'm at right now. It's one of those things where I got to determine where my time is best spent. Is it best spent making videos with YouTube and out cutting on a sawmill, or is it better spent, you know, maybe working a little bit more and you know, paying the bills? So I know I'm going to screw this up. I don't know how to say his name. Is it Jack the Rips comment says, I would suggest people find Jorg's channel. He's a 2 million sub creator who has formed a YouTube union to try to work with YouTube. I am a subscriber to his channel. I've seen the video, and I like the idea. You know, it's one of those things that unions are made basically for the people that, you know, need to get together and try to make things work better for everybody. So I like the idea. I just bought 100 acres, 90 of it is mixed brush, mostly oak, so I'm a big learning curve on everything to do with wood information gathering. Yeah, it's one of those things that you definitely got to learn as you go. I'm no expert on anything, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, but it's something that, the things that I pass along, I'm learning off my own experiences, and it's just something that, you just kind of learn as you go. Jesus was a carpenter, must be a good job. It's an honest job. That's the thing of it there. Electrical workers, carpenters, those kinds of guys. It's not the best paying jobs, but I'll tell you what, it's probably the most satisfying as far as going home, being able to rest your head on a pillow and sleep at night and know that you did something productive for somebody else. It's not something that you're taking advantage of anybody for. Real McCoy says, I did industrial maintenance, wish I had stayed. Mike, I think it's one of those things that's probably one of those things where the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. I'm looking at you thinking, man, I wish I had the guts to get a sawmill and go full time and just do what my heart was after rather than doing what the money's in. So I envy you and you envy me, so I think in the end, I think it's a wash. It's something that I guess we all just have to be thankful for the things we have, I guess. How's the weather been in PA lately? The weather in PA has been on off like a light switch. Like I said before, I had a day here where it was 70 degrees last week or the week before. First day in about 3 months that I was able to drive around my window down on my truck. And next thing you know, it was about, I don't know, a week later, we got 6 inches of snow on Saturday. So here where I live, the funny thing is I work about 30 miles east of where I live. Where I live at, we got nothing. We got a dusting of snow. Where I work at, we got closer to a foot. So between here and there, it's a mixture between, a foot of snow and a dusting. The foot of snow gets kind of treacherous to try to drive in. It gets to the point where it shut the interstate down and stuff and had some accidents and things, and that's just normal PA weather. Sawmilling is a good career choice, but huge learning curve. I'm sure there's things that you could teach us, Mike, and you have the opportunity here with YouTube. You could share some of your knowledge with us. I know I enjoy all your stories, even if you're just talking about whatever's going on. Watching your sawmill run, the circular sawmill, I wish I had one of them. That's something to be able to see the log set up on that and come down through and cut, and you're fortunate enough to have your wife there, mother working with you, and everything is just, if you guys haven't checked out The Real McCoy, go check his channel out. It's something that I think everybody here watching has probably already subscribed to his channel, but that's the channel. You want to see some sawmill, and there's a channel to see some sawmill. That's a little more professional than the little band mill I got. Hey, one of those things, if you can share a little bit of information and, everybody helps each other out here a little bit, I think everybody wins. Always amazing when you make the first cut into a log and really see what's in there. It's something. I never get tired of that. When you open up a new log, you take and you set it up there and you cut it. There's always a surprise in the log. Sometimes you cut into it and the grain in there is just absolutely unbelievable, and it's something that is just a real interesting to open them up and see some of the grain patterns in there. You get some of the crotch figure or some of the curl in there or the tight grain in there and some of the things, and then there's other times where I'm cutting logs open and you get nothing but a pile of ants, and then that just kind of turns your stomach when you see that kind of stuff in there. You have a little bit of rot and some carpenter ants in there, and that makes it, it is what it is. You win some, you lose some. Plan on doing a video so you want to be a sawmiller. I'll tell you what, Mike, that would be a good one. Worked a log cabin manufacturing, huge crosscut saws and lathes, but no mill. That's something I don't know. I guess I never really considered it. There's so many sawmills around my area, and Pennsylvania is one of those things where we're known for a lot of wood and a lot of logs, trees, however you want to say that, lumber, and industry and that nature. It's something that I have the opportunity. I could probably go work for one of these sawmills, but I guess I just never really swung through on any of that. I was fortunate enough that the job that I found is just a manufacturing environment. It's something that I got into, and the pay's good, and I just stayed there. I never really chased after much. I guess it's something where you gotta have goals and you gotta have plans to continue chasing after to follow your dreams. Real McCoy has a good channel. Love his videos, and everyone here needs to spend a few hours a week listening to Mike's tales. A few hours a week might be a little bit much, but I do agree he's got a great channel, and it would be a good idea to go over there and check it out. I wonder what's easier to build, a circular sawmill or a band mill. I'll tell you, I would say a band mill would probably be much easier than a circular sawmill. I wouldn't even know where to begin. The circular sawmill, you're going to have some horsepower on that. The motor alone would be some work on there. Band sawmill, if I knew what I know now back before when I first bought my band sawmill, I probably would take and try to build my own. You know, Northwest Solar there, he says that, I always screw these names up. I don't know how to say his name. Something on there did what to expect with the mill video. I watch his channel too. I think a lot of people watch the same channels, the same videos. I watch some of these channels and I go through some of the comments, and it seems like it's the same tight-knit group of people that are in most of the same themed videos. Wife started walking around with a clothes peg on her nose, so I'm gonna go get a shower now. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've come home after working all day, especially if we do a bonfire or something, or we go out and we have, you know, sometimes you're working with equipment, you get a little bit of diesel fuel on you, or a little bit of gasoline, or you're doing something with a sawmill, you spill some gas or something, or even doing stuff, lawn mowing and stuff like that. I come home and the wife looks at me and just kind of shakes her head, you need to go to the shower, as soon as I walk in the door. Swing blade sawmills, that's another one. I would really like to build a swing blade sawmill, but I think that's one of those things that I probably will never get to. But that is something, the swing blade sawmills, I like the way they work. They would be nice for making structural lumber like 2x4s. You know, you cut one way, flip it, cut the other way. There's a guy, I can't remember the name of his channel, but he's got one that he was doing that stuff with. And I'll tell you, he made a heck of a stack of 2x4s and some quick work with a swing blade sawmill. Now, Real McCoy says a circular mill is much easier. You're talking a big mill like a 12-inch? A band mill that is big like 12-inch. Stripper glitter, the wife hates that even worse. I'll bet she does. Diesel's bad on clothes. You're telling me. I'll tell you, I spilled some diesel on some of my jeans, and you're almost better just throwing them out and going and getting a new pair than it is to try to wash them. It just doesn't want to come out, and it's terrible stuff. Swing blade saw may have to be made of some pretty hefty steel for the rigidity, I think. You know, you're probably right to keep it accurate and keep it straight. Although I've seen some that are made basically on the same principles as bandsaw mill, where they're on framework with some casters and rollers, and it goes up and down through there. So I think it's something that can be done on the lighter side, but at the same time, probably the heavier duty the better. What do I use for lube on my saw? For my saw, generally I use Dawn dish soap and some water. Usually what I do is I just take and put a couple squirts of Dawn dish soap in a full jug of water, and then close the lid and then shake it up, and that's generally what I use. In the winter time I use windshield washer fluid, and the same deal, fill it with windshield washer fluid, throw a few squirts of dish soap in there, close the lid up and then shake it up, and that usually works pretty well. I've heard different people say different things about that. and I'm sure there's a lot of different things that you could use for lube for the Sawmill. But I found that a little bit of Dawn dish soap and water seems to work really well, and it dries up nice. You're not polluting the ground, or you're not getting any kind of I've heard diesel fuel and stuff of that nature works good too. You can probably use a lot less of it and still get by with it, but it's just something that you know, I've always found that Dawn dish soap and a little bit of water works best. Dawn dish soap for stripper glitter. I don't think that'll work. What am I missing here? Wrangler Star has one, doesn't he? I'm not sure what I missed there. Great build video series by a guy in Australia, a guy making a swing blade sawmill. There's a lot of serious fabrication on some of the parts though. I'm sure there is. I wouldn't even know where to start. How many logs can you cut before you have to sharpen it, and how many blades should a person own? Well, that's a good question. Let's take it in part here. How many logs can you cut before you have to sharpen a blade? On average, I would say, depending on what kind of wood you cut, if you're cutting pine, you usually get a little bit more. If you're cutting hardwood, oak, or something of that nature, you get a little less. But I'd say right around 10 to 15 logs. I usually get 10 to 15 logs cut, and you can tell just by the way it's pushing that it doesn't want to cut through. And once you start pushing on the saw, if the blade's dull, the blade starts to walk and it moves, and you get a wavy pattern in your wood, and you know right away that your blade's no good. I know I've cut a few boards that I shouldn't have, and you end up looking at it at the end of the day, and it's like you should have just stopped and changed your blade. I've been sending my blades out to get them sharpened. I'm not overly impressed with them, but I think that's one of those things. It's just like a chainsaw. If you take your time and you sharpen them right, you know, you get a good edge on them. You can reuse the same blade several times. But it takes some work and some knowledge. If you don't sharpen them just right, they're no good. Now the other part of the question was how many blades should a person own? As many as possible. That's the answer I've got for you on that one. I started out with 10 blades. I ordered another 5 later on, and then I ordered another 20. I think I've got, give or take, around 40 of them right now. But I know I've snapped a few of them that probably could be welded back together, but it's one of those things that when you're cutting and I find that the blade starts to wear a little bit, you get a nick in the blade, and as soon as it gets a nick in the blade, you'll feel the vibration. Every time that nick goes through the board, you'll feel the saw jitter a little bit and vibrate. And once the saw starts doing that, I can almost predict it down to the minute on when the blade's going to break, because once it starts vibrating a little bit, I know the blade's going to snap, and next thing you know, boom, the blade snaps on it. And then you know, it's one of those things you should just stop and change the blade out. And I've already caught them where you can see the hairline crack coming down the inside of the tooth, and it's just something that over time, stress and wear and heat, it's gonna crack and it's gonna split, and eventually they're gonna break. So it's one of those things. If you nurse your saw blades, you cut them before they get dull, you stop and you change them and you sharpen them on a regular basis. They last longer. Hope that answers your question. Go through some of these comments here a little bit. What kind of horsepower would you need to cut a 20-inch circular saw blade? I can't even imagine. I would think it would have to be more than I would want to deal with. Have I had to adjust the tracking on the left-hand side band wheel? Blade sticks out further than I'd like. I haven't adjusted mine ever since I started with my sawmill. Now, I'm not sure Woodland Mills is going to like what I have to say on this question, but I found that my sawmill right off the box, right out of the get-go, I prefer to track it with the blade out a little bit. It's not actually sitting back on the back blade guides. It's got maybe 1/8 of an inch before it hits those back two bearings. I think I probably could run my sawmill without the blade actually resting on those 2 back bearings. And it's one of those things where I adjust the tracking on it every time I put a blade on it, and I try to keep it where if I spin it by hand, you can see the blade go in or out a little bit. And I try to keep it so that the back of the blade is about even with the back of the wheels. And at that point, you have about an 1/8 inch gap before it hits the back two roller bearings there. And if you want, I could show you a little bit better when I go out to the sawmill. I could do a little video on that and explain it a little bit better. But basically, my sawmill, my blade doesn't usually touch the two back guide bearings. It's just the way I found it runs best, you know. And like I said, I'm not sure Woodland Mills would back me up on that. I think they probably would say that the manufacturer specs it probably should sit back on those two back bearings, but I just found that it seems to run better with it being out just a little bit. Depends how many bolts are in it. Yeah, the bolts definitely slow your blade down a little bit too. I've broken a few doing that too. I bet someone else paid for the mill. Not sure what you're talking about there, Jack. I think maybe you're talking about the swing blade sawmill. Wrangler Star has everything. Just ask him and he'll tell you. So yeah, I don't really watch Wrangler Star. I've seen a couple of his videos, but I'm not a subscriber to his channel, and I'm not really watching that either. What brand am I running? I assume you're talking saw blades. Lennox. I get my Lennox saw blades. I found a place online that sells them pretty cheap, a little under 20 bucks a blade, and that's where I've been getting them from. I know there's a couple different people and a couple different places I've talked to that are a little bit cheaper, but I forget the name of the website I get them off of, but they're just under 20 bucks a blade. I have a tree in my backyard that I dread cutting down. I know for a fact it's full of bullets. Don't ask how I know. I got a sneaky suspicion I know exactly where they got there. Do I plan on upgrading my sawmill to a bigger one, or are you happy with the one you own? That's a tough question. I am happy with the one that I own. However, I would like to have a bigger one. I would like to cut some wider slabs. There's been some trees that I've cut, some nice walnut trees, some nice maple, and I would really like to get some wider slabs on, especially the live edge slabs. It's tough. The crotch figure and stuff. I would like to have a wider sawmill. It's just one of those things. I don't see it happening in the near future. Maybe someday, you know, if YouTube takes off, I hit the lottery, or somehow I inherit a big sum of money. Maybe then I'll go buy a bigger sawmill. But other than that, I'm probably going to stick with what I have for at least the foreseeable future. Never seen anybody milling less than 2 inches on a swing blade. You know, I really think those swing blade sawmills are something that they cut mostly like 2x4 type material. Kirk sent me $1.99. Hey, thanks, Kirk. I appreciate that. You didn't have to do that, but I sure do appreciate it. I'm not sure how far behind I am on his comments. I'm probably pretty far behind him on him, actually. Do I set it up with the blade pointing perfectly horizontal, or is it pointed up or down slightly? I would think it's pretty straight horizontal. I don't see it being pointed up or down. You know, the teeth on the blade have an offset to them where they have a little bit of an offset up and down, but I would think it's pretty horizontal. My phone's dying on me, so if I end up cutting out here early, you know why. Wrangler Star's in it for the cash. Wrangler Star thumbs down. You know, a lot of people are upset with Wrangler Star, and another channel I have watched that I think a lot of people are upset with is that, now I can't remember her name now even. Pure Living for Life. I've seen a lot of videos where people are just upset with them. They made some comments about homesteaders, and I think it set a lot of people off. Let's see how far behind am I here. Mike McCoy and I are neck and neck for 900. Dylan's Woodworks. You guys, You know, these YouTube things are funny. I think it's one of those things that you guys will pick up and take right off. It's just, it's slow and steady, you know, even being where I'm at where, you know, I'm posting a video every so often and I haven't posted as often as I like. I'm still gaining a steady set of subscribers and I still have seen a pretty steady stream of views. So if you make the videos, if you build it, they will come. You know, it's just something you got to put the videos out there, and I'm sure you guys have good content, and just keep at it. You'll get the viewers and the subscribers, and it'll all come. Those upset people are name dropping for views. You know, that's probably true too. A lot of people are probably just saying stuff about these channels for the sake of getting more viewers to watch their channel. But you know, if I do upgrade, would you stick with Woodland Mills? Boy, that's a good question. It all depends on how much money I win in the lottery. You know, would I like to get a Wood Miser? Yeah, I would like to get a Wood Miser. I really would. But you know, I'm happy with Woodland Mills. I am happy with Woodland Mills. They have a good product. I think their sawmills are a good sawmill. Northwest Saw, check his channel out. You know, I think he went through the same path. He started off with the Woodland Mills and he went on to a Wood Miser, and I don't think you'll hear him complain. Joe says Timber King. YouTube rules is getting lots of people to do silly things. Yeah, I think you know, it's something that hydraulic sawmill is a good idea. You know, YouTube is a very funny thing. I was shocked when I first got a big influx of views and a big load of subscribers came in back in December, and I really went kind of viral there a little bit, and things shot up through the roof for me, and I gained a load of subscribers and a load of views in a short amount of time, and I had this disillusion that maybe YouTube would actually be something to take off and make me a little bit of money, and you know, that didn't really work out, but it's one of those things. It's more fun for me to post and chat with you guys and continue on my path here of just having a good time and doing this for the fun of it rather than trying to do it for the money. You know, it's not about money. It's just got to be about something I'm doing for fun. So, you know, there's so many people out there talking about so many different things about you can't do this and you can't do that, you can't do shout outs, and a lot of this sub for sub stuff is getting a lot of people in trouble, and a lot of the botting and a lot of the watching different people's stuff and putting it on and letting it play and stuff is getting a lot of people in trouble. And you know, I'm not all about any of that kind of stuff. I just want to be here to have a good time, share a few thoughts, and share some experiences and learn a few things from you guys, and you guys learn a few things from me, and everybody wins, and I'm happy with that. So that's where I plan on being with YouTube. Just gonna enjoy what I can while I can. It'll take a while. Just tag the crap out of your stuff. Yeah, you know, I found that if you tag it right and you give the right description in it, it does help. But it's just one of those things that I can't even understand. Some of my videos I thought would do really well didn't, and some of my videos I thought wouldn't do anything at all did really well. So, you know, I can't explain their logic on what deserves to be shared and what doesn't. What tags do you guys use? I just type whatever comes to mind, usually for the same 5-6 things. What is my favorite wood to cut? My favorite wood to cut is pine, because it's nice, it's easy, it's soft, it cuts nice, it smells nice, it looks good. It's not as good to work with furniture though. I would say oak would be my second favorite. Let's go back to that other question now. The other question, a little bit longer winded here. What type of tags do you use? Alright, tags. You guys want the secrets to YouTube? This is what I figured out, and it took me some time to figure this all out. Your best way to make any kind of money off of YouTube and get any kind of subscribers on YouTube and to gain any kind of a following on YouTube is to post something that everybody looks up on a daily basis. Do I have much pine? Yeah, I have a lot of pine up my way. Someday maybe I'll take a walk around and show you the trees around my area. Pine's a big one. But back to the tags thing. Let's say you want to do a video and you're trying to get people to come to your channel and you're trying to get people to watch you, and you want to make a video that you know will get a lot of traffic and a lot of views. The best thing I can tell you to do is find something that everybody wants to see. If you're out there, let's take, I took the back seat out of my truck. Let's do that for instance, okay? Now, if I did a video on taking the back seat out of my truck, I labeled the video, how to remove the seat out of a Dodge 1500 pickup truck, okay? And then the best thing to do is then in your description you have to repeat basically what you put in the title. And you just put in there, today's video I took and removed the seat out of my Dodge Ram 1500 pickup truck. And then in the tags you put how to remove the seat out of a 1500 pickup truck. Word for word, almost exact same thing you put in your title as you do in your description, as you do in your tag. And what that does is that brings it up to the top of the search list when people go and they type in, you know, how to remove a seat out of a truck, how to remove a seat out of a pickup truck, how to remove a seat out of a Dodge truck, all those things. That's what you want to put for your tag, and your tag is 12 words long or 5 words long or whatever it is. And those tags, what it does is when somebody types that in, and they type in how to remove a seat out of a pickup truck, if you put that phrase in your tags, then that'll come up, and that'll come up in the top of the search results, and it'll bring more traffic to that channel. So what I'm trying to say is, a lot of what I first started doing YouTube, what I would do is I would put how to remove my seat out of my pickup truck, and I'd put in the description, hey, you know, here's a video, I hope you guys enjoy in the description, and I wouldn't even exactly repeat the same thing. And then I would turn around and in my tags I would put pickup truck, you know, another tag Dodge, another tag remove seat, and that didn't really, it's okay to put single word tags, but it's better if you put group word of tags in there. My battery's just about dead in my phone, and I'm using my phone here to shoot this live stream, so unfortunately I'm gonna have to let you guys go. And it's been over an hour, so I think it's probably about time that I cut this one short anyway. So I plan on doing these live streams every other week, every other Monday. So what I'm gonna do is, if you guys are interested and you want to come back for another chat with me, I'd appreciate you guys stopping in. Not next Monday, but the Monday after, I will be doing another live stream. And the time will vary, but I'm going to say between 7 and 9 o'clock Eastern time. So somewhere in that area. And, you know, I thank everyone for stopping in and chatting with me. I appreciate everybody coming in and sticking with me. And until next time, I hope everybody has a good night. And, you know, have some fun out there. I'll do my best to keep posting about a video a week, so I look forward to seeing your comments in my videos. I appreciate all the watching. If you guys can, you know, share some of my videos, I'd appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.